Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Flux Dev Meeting. It's February 24th, 2022. And I just pasted the, actually, I'll do it after the recording because I think we keep that important. Pasted the link to the dev agenda for the day. So everyone just want to take a quick peek at the topics. I know we have at least planned, we have a planned demo for the OCI repository design for design feedback. And then we have a few other items on here that we normally ask for. I guess I'll go ahead and get started on those. How are you doing, Sule?
Hello, well, I'm good. Well, pretty good. I'm on holidays, actually. I'll be doing the demo with Max.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. Well, all right. So we have been having our topic, the first topic being just like checking in on what's happening on the way to GA with, let's see, there's a link to the roadmap, PR. All right. Okay, so that was updated. That's good. I'm not sure why this is linked to today's notes, but maybe that's just, that was leftover from a recent past. Maybe I'll remove that. That's been merged. But does someone want to do a little review of anything new in the past week that's been happening on the road to GA?
Oh, I'll probably jump in then. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so, well, I'm not following all the details of the roadmap, but I'm just kind of looking at it now. But one of the key things that the team is working right now is on merging the source controller rewrite into the main branch so we can release that. And on top of that, I can see that there's 3 points on the roadmap page, which is incident management and troubleshooting guides, developer guides, and cloud-specific guides. I'm not quite sure how, if there was any development on that front. But as far as I'm aware, the key things that we're working on is, well, the rewrite, merging that into the main branch, and also working on some instability issues. Quite a few users complained about leaked connections on both the source controller, but especially on image automation controller, which is something that Sanskar have been investigating quite a bit. But yeah, we're working on those and trying to mitigate them as soon as possible.
Great. Thank you. Okay, and then there was a list. I just want, or excuse me, a list item that I think is just from our template to review the audit follow-up. I think this is something I might want to, I don't know, Kingdon, if you have a moment for me to ask you about this. I think the only item that's on this project board that's linked in the notes is to describe end-to-end processes in Flux.
Yeah,
I think that you're one of the people that
PR that's open for that. and I'm not sure if there's a link in the doc yet. I'm on my laptop screen here. But the PR is, I would say, 95% complete. It should be in pretty good shape. There is still some feedback that I haven't had a chance to address. If you've left feedback and you see I haven't done anything about it, thanks everyone for providing feedback. I really appreciate it. I think it should be in pretty good shape to merge after all that feedback is addressed. And there should be mostly small things at this point related to the particulars of the content. So if you have any feedback for the PR, please put it on there, and I'll be trying to merge that after the demo that I'm giving this afternoon. So sometime this week, hopefully.
Awesome. Thanks, Kingdon. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put the link here.
Thank you.
Please, I'll just say, please give any last minute reviews.
We can iterate on it as long as we want. Once it's merged, I don't think that there should be any major blockers left, but that's up to the reviewers.
Yeah, perfect. And Kingdon, if I know you have other things to do today, but if I can be helpful in any way with that, let me know.
Yeah, I would appreciate it. Anyone who is or is not sure, it doesn't really matter about your understanding of Flux from end to end. Just take a look and let me know if you found it readable, if it was informative, if it was helpful for you, if you think that it's awful and we should not have this document. Any kind of feedback is good.
Yeah, and one piece of context is that this was one of the things that was asked for from the audit. It seemed right. It seemed that this would be helpful for folks.
Yeah, maybe to set the context so everyone knows what was the actual driver for making this document. My understanding, at least, is that the security auditors would have really liked to have a document that they could start with and make their entire estimate from without having to learn Flux up front in order to figure out how long it would take them and where they would have to go to complete their work. So it may be very helpful for users, or it might not, but that's the actual goal, is the next time we have auditors who are unfamiliar with Flux come in and do a security audit, they should be able to get a one-page view of where they'll have to go.
Yes. In that case, we should probably link that from the top level security landing page too. Do you think that makes sense?
Once it's merged, that would be a good idea. Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. Then let's move on to we have a bug scrub discuss topic. That's also you, Kingdon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the bug scrub is, well, we had a bug scrub yesterday morning, and so that means the next bug scrub is same day as this Thursday next week, only a few hours later. Please check out the Flux calendar if you're interested. We always like to have volunteers. And also, if there's anyone interested in giving a presentation on any topic related to Flux, we're thinking about shaking up the format of the bug scrub. So that is another way that you can volunteer. If you'd like to give an ad hoc presentation, no pressure, come and let me know and we'll put it on the calendar. Can be recorded or not, does not matter.
Awesome. Okay, great. And you had already mentioned that you're doing the demo this afternoon, right?
Yeah, I did mention it, but it's on the agenda, so I should probably call it out
May as well.
There's a link to the GitHub repository that I built last night, late last night, to get all the examples together for this demo. And if you're interested in learning about how image update automation works, or Git repository Semver automation, or Helm Semver automation, all of those techniques will be demoed and will be available to take questions.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, so there's, apart from the OCI repository demo that Max and Souley are here to do, there is only one other item on the agenda, and I'm wondering if it's relatively quick, because if it is, we could kind of end with the demo. It's Sanskar, you put something on here about limiting the Git repo size.
Yeah, I didn't know what to call it. Like I myself am unsure about the whole issue. So recently there was an issue with our customer, I think DT5G, the German telecom company. So what happened was there was this issue where one of their clusters, in one of their clusters, source controller was taking like 4 gigs of memory. And what was happening, so we did a bit of investigation. It was, I think right now, it's their fault. Like what happened was one of them pushed like a really big zip file to the repo, and the source controller must have pulled the Git repository, and that's what I think made it short up. So Felipe was handling the customer side of it, and he asked me if it would be possible to somehow limit the Git repository or add some kind of flag so that you avoid this kind of so like if someone does by mistake push something that big, the source controller doesn't, like, it doesn't just shoot up or it doesn't get out of memory killed.
Do we have an issue for that already somewhere? In the
No,
source
that no, we don't. Yeah, and it seems anti-Git ops to me. I mean, the Git repository is supposed to be the source of the truth. I mean, no matter what you push in there. But then again, if you push something that big, it wouldn't be nice to see your pods getting out of memory killed. So it's kind of like a gray area about what to do here.
Yeah. I don't know what anyone else thinks right now, but I would think that if we would open it, it would be good if you wouldn't mind opening an issue just to discuss it, Sanskar, or maybe even a GitHub discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to get everyone's opinion so that I could frame it in a proper way as to, is this even, does this actually collide with the philosophy of Git ops, or should we actually consider it? That's what I wanted to bring up.
Just a quick question on that, Sanskar. So basically the problem was that there was a big file in the actual current kind of branch, or was it a file that was created and then deleted, but the repo is still too big?
I don't know
files that exist.
I don't know, but according to what Felipe told me, it was someone pushed to the Git repository, to their Git server, a very big file, and I'm guessing the source controller must have checked it out, checked that commit out, and that must have caused it to explode. I mean, the memory of it explode.
Right. Yeah, because I know we can ignore files within the given repo, but if the problem is the repo itself, that, like you have a committee that is, too large, then we still would download that. But yeah, that's cool. Thank you.
This sounds very similar to the Helm repository and Helm chat situation we had a few months ago, and we added some limitations. So for Helm repository index and chat, we have some limits. And if people go beyond that, they have to pass some flags. And I think the reason for adding that was, again, memory related.
Yeah, so that's
like the same issue.
So that's what I wanted to bring up. Should we consider adding a flag, or should we just let it be the way it is right now?
If we do, we can add it for everything. Like even for buckets, we can add something.
Sunny, that was my thought too, and it's only just spitballing. You know, that could that be something that we would want to? Would that be good to add protections across the board somehow?
Yes, it would be myself with security hat on saying definitely. But I think it would be good to have like an issue or discussion tracking this, and then we can
Yeah,
kind of
I'll open one.
evolve.
I'll open one. Yeah.
Cool.
That's it from my side. I'm excited for the demo. Yeah.
Awesome. And other people, we are going to go to the demo next. So other people feel free to put other topics on, even if we don't get, I don't want to set the precedent that we shouldn't add topics because we'll feel like we'll be delaying. We can always move those to the next, those other topics to the next week if we don't get to them after the demo. So please feel free to continue to put those on. I just want to, because I saw that on there, I wanted to go ahead and ask Sanskar. I'm glad we got to talk about it for a second. So yeah, so it is now Max and Sule's time. Are you two ready to give us a little context and show us what you got?
Yeah, I think I'll start and then I'll text Max. So yeah, maybe I'll share my screen. So our use case with the OCI registry supporting the source controller is to be able to consume artifacts from OCI registries to be consumed by our customization controller and our Helm controller. So what we have today, we've added a new client that is then can pull and push to OCI registries. So I'm going to demonstrate how it works with plain YAML files, and then I'll let Max do it with Helm charts. So what I did, I have created an archive actually, and I have pushed the archive before and push the archive to my GitLab registry. So what I did is I pushed it with the configuration file using OCI image config, and my layers is just my archive as an OCI image layer, right? So if I infect it, just so we see. So we see here, so this is my case. So we see, just as I said, I told you have a configuration with the media type image config, and one layer with the media type OCI image layer with my digest. So now what we are going to do is we will apply it. So we have a new kind that is your free kind in the source. Okay. With the name and in space. And in the spec, what we see is ask it to reconcile minute on the URL of the registry is in GitLab engineering test one and for the repository pod info. So on the reference, you can use tags, digest, but here I'm using some semantic version. I'm asking it to pull everything starting with 1.0.x. And also I'm keeping the secret reference where the credential for the registry, right? So I'm just going like, so I applied it. So now if I get just a repository, so I have only one with the URL, and it's still reconciling. It still does. So if I describe it, it's funny because it was working a few minutes ago. Button for deploy. repository, say repository. So do you have monetization failed because it pulled it somehow? Because here I see I have, well, in this status services, I have the artifact with the pass where it's pulling, I have the artifact, but 25 seconds ago, it pulled it, and 41 seconds ago, it did not, but now it seems to be fine. If I have it right now, it's fetched. So I have an artifact, as I was saying. So it just pulled the archive. You will see later that the archive is here. And I have a new revision and with the digest of the manifest. All right, I have it here. So now let's just try another one. So the second one I'm going to try is to pull upload info from Stefan GitHub registry. So the difference here is the media type is different. Here we have a Docker media type, and we have for the layer we have a Docker image interface layer. So in our client we support OCI images, we support Docker images, and we support Helm charts artifacts as well. So here it's basically just the time I'm going to apply this.
So, quick question, Sule. Can I ask you just about the supported list? So does that mean that we have maybe a list of well-known types that we support, and if there was another type that was added, so we don't just support any MIME type, right? Like we can add additional support as other tools register their MIME types.
Yeah. So here we have our client, and in our client have when we do the pull, we have what we call allowed media types. So today we support the OCI media types for the image config and the layers, and we support Helm types for the config, the chart layer, and the provenance files. And we support the distribution schema, which are actually the Docker types. So if for tomorrow we have material artifact types, we can add them here to support them, and then our client will be able to pull them. All right.
Thank you.
So yeah, so here, this is the public repository from Stefan Puran, and this time we just give the semantic versioning that we want, and we don't need the secret as public repository. So if I will just apply it. So here the same. If I check my repositories, the consolidation still progress taking quite some time now. If I describe it. Describe. So it just fetched it. So the same, I have the path and the revision with the digest. So what I wanted to do is connect the container so we can check what we have. So here we have the artifacts. If I go in the pod info, just here, and I enter it. So what we see is we have just the YAML files. So the idea in our customization controller is just to pull out, to take the artifact locally, enter it, and then we can apply Actually, it's the same way we do with the Git repository. We can apply with the customers the deployment, the SPA here, right? Make sense?
Mhm.
So this is for the customers in control. Now I'll let Max take over.
Sule, can I ask you a question about, did I see that right? That the and Max, that the customized YAMLs that you were showing, or the plain YAMLs, those were not stored as an artifact, right? Those were stored in as an image MIME type. Is that right? Or
There was yeah, there was stored as image MIME types, yeah.
right,
OCI.
because
Well, the first one was stored at OCI image MIME type, and the second one was stored at Docker with FS MIME type. But
got it. And
well, those are, yeah.
I was just asking. Sorry, I'll save my other
Yeah,
question about that for the end. Thanks.
We do that because we don't have our own artifact MIME type.
Right.
So we have to use OCI images or the Docker with FS.
All right, so let's get to Helm chart support. Can you see my terminal? Right, okay. So pushing Helm charts is a little simpler because you just need the Helm CLI for it, because it supports pushing charts to OCI registries by using the OCI scheme in the URL. So what I did is I came up with, I created a very simple Helm chart, packaged it, and now I'm using the Helm CLI to push it to registry gitlab.com/market/test. So that will be the OCI registry that we're going to pull this to. And now when I want to consume this with Flux, what I do is I create an OCI repository, just the way Sule did for images and customizations. I also use Zenver, saying I only want to use O.2 releases, and then I point it to the very same URL that I use in the Helm CLI call, right? Using the OCI scheme here. And our source controller is then using this OCI scheme to know this is a Helm, like pointing to a Helm chart repository. So this OCI repository is specific to Helm charts for now, like in the current design. So we're going to create this on the kind cluster I spun up. See how it goes. Looks good. And then the status looks a little different because we don't actually pull the chart in that iteration. We just point, like we check the tags, we fetch all the tags and see this is a list of tags that exist. And then we pick the latest one that matches the Zenver declaration in the OCI repository here, right? So what it did is it picked ODA 2.0 because that's the most recent version, and stored the URL in the URL field of the status artifact. And then what's it called? Helm release. Then we have this Helm release manifest here, which is pretty unspectacular. It just uses a different source ref than the one that we are used to. It points to the OCI repository that we just created. It doesn't have a version specifier because that's ignored the same way as it's ignored for buckets and Git repositories. And when we create that in the API, it's already done. Release reconciliation has succeeded. And this looks like familiar to everyone who's ever created a Helm release. And to prove that it actually installed the Helm release, we can use the Helm tool, and it has deployed test in version 0.2.0. And when I now go ahead and patch, oh wait, I gotta go here and patch the OCI repository to point to, say, the next version, which is 0.3.0. So I'm just going to change the OCI repository here. Already fetched the artifact. So it scanned the list of tags again and saw, okay, there's a new version matching the Zemver declaration in the OCR repository. And that's already it. So it got picked up and deployed. And now we have test 0.3.0 and it works the same way backwards. Like we can change the Zemver to 0.2.0 and it'll downgrade to test 0.2.0. So it is kind of unspectacular, which I think is one of the goals here, to make it as simple as possible. There has been some back and forth on like the OCI repository design, but yeah, that's how it works at the moment. Yeah, and that's already it.
That's so great. That's actually beyond the scope of what we thought you're going to be demoing today. Yeah, as far as I think what we were told, or what I had heard initially was that it was only going to be source repository, or excuse me, source controller demo, but that you have a working implementation of this design anyway for the Helm controller too. That's amazing to see.
I must admit it's kind of rough at the moment, so it doesn't take into account the values, for example, so you can specify any values for overriding the Helm chart values and everything like that. But like, I mean, it's a POC, so
right.
it works.
And it's for design feed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is for design feedback from people on this meeting primarily, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's what we expect.
Max and Soleil, thank you very much both for working on it, at least. I have a couple of design related concerns, I would say. I find the attachment of the OCI repository and the way that it's responsible for scanning the tags in combination with the fact that the Helm chart object kind of does the same, but based on a Helm repository index, awkward. And I think it will be growingly awkward when people are like, I have an OCI registry, the OCI registry needs credentials, and I want to share the credentials, or at least kind of an object which has the kind of common authentication values. And I think it has been discussed before, maybe even on the PR that introduced this, that it feels to me like there should be a split between an OCI repository, as in something that creates an artifact out of an OCI registry, and the OCI registry object itself, which holds the data to basically authenticate towards the thing. Because the problem I see is that you now have to create two objects, but in such an awkward way that every time you need to create or refer to a new Helm chart, you need to create a new object, which then goes and scans text, but your Helm chart object also has a filter to filter out text. So that's also where another design detachment comes to life, because in a Helm chart object, you can define a reference, and the reference is there responsible for filtering the right chart. And all that together, I think that while we're headed in the right direction, we should think about how we can make it less awkward. That's the quick 2-minute review I have. Other than that, it's all looking great. It's technically working, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the main points of contention, right? That like the difference between an OCI repository and kind of like an OCI registry type, where you just say, hey, this is a registry, these are the credentials, and then you have other types that you can use to refer to that registry, be it like images or Helm charts or whatever?
Yeah, I think also the why we have it this way, because we want to support the artifacts for all our controllers. In the future, if you add new controllers, we want it to be really seamless, and that's why, from my point of view, I think the best way is why this is the best way, because anyway, the OCI repository today has to pull the list of tags in order to pull as I was demonstrating it. For the customized controller, we want to pull the artifact. And in order to pull the last artifact, anyway, we need to pull the list of tags to see what is the last artifact in case of semantic versioning and do the reconciliation based on the last semantic version. So this is the job that will be done anyway. So we thought we could use this for the Helm charts as well. That's it.
I mean, Hida, it's an interesting question because I thought my initial thought was exactly the same, is that let's just say in the example of a Helm chart for end users, and you've got authorizations for your OCI registry. If you've got 100 different charts, then you're now kind of following the pattern, the anti-pattern that we had earlier with Helm controller, where we split a Helm repository from a Helm release, so that we can reuse the authorizations, so you don't have to specify those 100 times, you know. So I definitely get that, and I'm also thinking about what was just said, and thinking about what makes OCI a little bit different is that perhaps one of the big changes, I mean, is that there's a standard that can span across multiple projects. You know, so say, for example, with the Helm repository, it's something that only Helm defines. But with OCI registry and OCI artifacts, that's something that any other future controller could use, like whether it's the customized controller, a Terraform controller.
Doesn't that kind of mean that you need to separate them, because you know that the credentials and the URL to the registry is the common thing, but based on implementation specific differences, you would need another object to use those credentials and do something object specific with it.
I personally think so too. I think, and this is just like my immediate response. I had been thinking about it too, but if I posted in the chat that was thinking along the lines of what you're saying of splitting OCI registry and OCI artifact. And I guess the only potential redundancy there, and then it's Max next, but the only potential redundancy there might be if we have a separate object for OCI artifact for Helm, we'll also have a Helm chart that then can specify its own symver range. So like you said, where would that, is it the fact that we would want to perhaps refactor parts of the Helm controller to make use of this underlying functionality? I don't know that we can do this.
Why would you?
No, well, I'm just saying I don't think we can get around that.
I don't see a problem with the Helm chart that refers to an OCI registry which contains the credentials and then uses the credentials from the OCI registry object, which is the common kind of thing, to then fetch the chart using Helm specific logic based on the Helm chart data, which skips again one object.
Yeah.
I see Max has his hand raised, by the way, for not physical.
Yep.
I can raise it physically as well. Yeah, I think like having something like an OCI registry type that serves as mainly just a container for credentials makes sense. My only question would then be like, so a Helm repository has the index YAML as an artifact, right, that other controllers consume. a Git repository has the Git repository archive as an artifact. A bucket has the bucket as an artifact. So what would the artifact, like what would the value of this registry be? Like what would the artifact be that
It
other
would be a
controllers
static.
could consume?
It would be a static thing just for reference purposes. Just like we have in a notification controller, we have a provider object, and it's nothing more than a kind of a collection of I want things to end up on this URL with this secret, and which is then used by alerts, I think, to basically fetch the credential data at the time they are trying to emit the events.
Okay, so it wouldn't break with the current design. We already have that, right? Like these containers that don't have much more than credentials.
I would say it's just a building block to be able to create sources in which you need a higher level kind of configuration thing, which is common. But I don't think it would break anything. We have enums at present to basically protect people from not passing on object types that we can't work with, which is another thing that's open for discussion, because there are people out there who want to create their own source types and they can't refer to them right now. But that's another thing. I see Sebastian being very scared. What's the emotion, Sebastian?
There are always people out there trying to do some crazy thing. Don't worry about those people. Concentrate on what you can do today to make the world a better place.
Yeah,
I had a question. I don't know if you were calling on me or if I had a question. Or you're just reacting to my face. People often react to my face, usually by throwing fruit or rotten eggs.
Yeah, ask away.
I had a question. So this is not a review comment. It's more of a question, and it's possible maybe like there's nothing in the Helm concept to support this, but is there the idea of like values that apply to everything within a registry? So say you're picking up 10 charts out of the same registry, but you want to apply a value to every chart, like a global value override. Like, so say you know that every chart in this repository or this registry would have an application name, and you want to have like a common application name.
I'm not going to burn my hands on that. No.
I mean, is that a concept, or is that, because I thought when he was talking about values that he was talking about values on a sort of a global level. Just
no, the values override we support at the moment is that if a chart packages an example production values file, which some charts do, they have like a values dash prot kind of thing, you can tell the source controller to swap out the default values file for this thing, which is
for
kind
all
of
the charts. So
no,
at the registry level,
for a
or at
single
the release level. Yeah.
So
for a single chart, I get. For a single chart, that makes sense. I guess maybe I was just confused earlier.
I don't want to get into kind of the
conflation. Yeah. No, totally.
I know
totally
for
makes
sure
sense
that none of the charts in any registry or Helm repository or whatever has a common field that's exactly the same at exactly the same level. And if people think that is true, they are going to kind of go on their own fairy tale story route. But no, let's not do
charts, obviously. But if you're creating an internal registry, which you could do with this, or you're using Artifactory.
We are not a registry. We are more a temporary proxy of the latest thing that's available. If you want to get into
right.
standardizing your charts or anything else, you should do that the moment you push them to your Helm repository. And like, we don't want to become this toolbox for all the last mile modifications out there. There are kind of things that are expected within the ecosystem, I would say, like the charts being shipped with alternative default value files. But that's where the border is for us.
You're good. I understand the concept, and I understand what you're explaining. I was wondering whether that existed. If it doesn't exist, and there's good reasons for it to not exist, that makes a lot of sense. I was confused earlier in the demo because that's what I thought we were talking about with the artifacts as Max has envisioned them.
Yeah, sorry, no,
that
I was
makes-
just
that makes a lot of
talking
sense.
about how many specific values like we have right
Don't
now.
mind me, Max. I'm easily confused, as I'm sure Scott and Hide already know. And
Well, you
despite
Try
the
to remember
concerns, I
that.
can see you put a lot of work into this, and it's good work, and progress is better than perfection, I think, as they say.
Just yeah, if you don't mind me just replying to that real quick, despite that, the responses are correct, Sebastian, that there's no standard for values structures for Helm charts. However, that does sort of point to some of, I think, what Hida was mentioning earlier about the need for a second object, or for something, because we don't want, I guess here's what I'm thinking. It's just that you don't want to have to specify specific things that are specific to one artifact, not necessarily just the version, but the artifact that, over and over and over again, if they all live in the same registry. You know what I mean? So I think that I was very clumsy with what I was saying before, Hida, and now that I think I have a better way to say it, is that what I meant to say was I could see how it could feel like there's some redundancy by adding some Semver logic into the source controller to be able to find, to list the tags and find the right tag. And however, I agree with you that, that already is in the Helm client. So Helm can do that by itself, like via Orus. And if Orus is also inside of the source controller to be able to make, to allow other what do you call them? Reconciler controllers or delivery controllers, like Customize, Helm, Terraform, or whatever else, then I think that that's okay. But that's just my opinion.
One of the problems I see with creating a separate OCI registry kind of thing is that it gets into the water of the image automation controller, and especially the image reflector controller, because the image reflector controller continuously scans registries for tags. But on the other hand, I can see the design of the image reflector or image automation controller change to basically fetch the credentials from an OCI registry kind of thing, and then have a specific OCI image object which keeps track of the tags for one specific image reference or something. But anyway, I think if we get to kind of an initial solution, which mostly also takes the last mile modifications into account based on an artifact that comes from an OCI registry, then we can iterate over how we actually put the building blocks together, because I don't think that the kind of the scan that the OCI, what is it called? OCI repository object now does, that it can't be easily replaced with a solution that, I don't know, makes use of the Helm chart and some other object type.
Cool.
So one thing
Sorry.
I thought about, we could also just reuse the Helm repository and let users point to OCI registries. That just came to my mind, so I'm not sure if that even makes sense. Right?
Yeah, that's what
You would
I
have
think.
to have conditionals in the controller and everything. So it doesn't sound like very pleasant to implement.
Yeah, it could in a way, maybe. But I'm not sure.
End users, to be honest, just because an OCI registry is a completely different concept from a Helm repository.
That's
even
right.
if it's technically
it doesn't have
possible.
an
Like,
index or anything like that.
yeah,
Sure.
I think you could easily filter them out though on our side based on just the protocol, but yeah, it will get you probably in an awkward position if you want to explain it to another user.
And I guess it would probably break a user's workflows where they like rely on an artifact being present, being the index YAML. So if we
I
change
don't
that,
think anyone uses repositories themselves. Are fairly limited.
see.
Oh no, I know Weaveworks does it internally for other things. But I have to think about it. It's quite a lot if you look at all the covers.
I think I don't see the problem with splitting between a registry on an OCI artifact, but isn't this solving only a Helm problem? I mean for the other controllers, because I'm thinking of the consumer controllers.
I don't think it
is the best. Yeah, go on.
Because I think it will also be a lot easier for people to have multiple OCI repositories while making use of the same set of credentials defined in an OCI registry, which means that you can omit a lot of duplicate source references from your OCI repository kind of thing. I would then rename OCI repository to something else, but
yeah,
you get the idea.
sorry, what did you say?
And then
what would you rename it to? I missed that last part.
I don't know, an OCI artifact or something else, just something that distinguishes it. Like OCI, what is an OCI repository? It doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking too.
It's an
OCI registry with the credentials and OCI artifact. Yeah.
No, I think so. I think you're right, Scott. But then this OCI artifact will be used to pull and do the semantic versioning the same way we just showed during the demo, right? And then we can plug it to our controllers.
I think where it becomes awkward though is that you then have kind of at present an image reference is basically a string and the image reference is a whole. And if you start to get into OCI registry kind of object, then you have part of the image references in your OCI registry object, which is the full fully qualified domain name basically. And then your image artifact refers to an image registry, but also needs to contain a bit to define what image you need to refer to, which makes it kind of awkward again from, hey, normally I have a whole string, but now I suddenly have two strings divided over two objects, which also doesn't make it clear what domain an OCI artifact is referring to, because then you first need to take a look at the OCI registry. Other thing to think about.
Okay, we have.
So I think
we have to rework the design before going on the next step, I think.
What you may want to look into is, I know that there in the source controller repository, there's an issue where people already commented fawning about the naming of OCI repository and some other thing and suggested OCI artifact. I don't know. So you may want to look into that and see what their opinions were to have even more opinions into your decision making.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to talk about is, because we showed it, I think we now have our own client to do the pull and push. So in the future, if you want to have new artifact kind added to the client to support new artifact, you can do that. Is this something I think we should keep? Because the previous implementation from VMware, they were using a Google Container Library, I think. And now we have our own client.
Sule and Max, do you mind sharing is the design doc public? I think it is, right? Because you linked it.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Issue. Would you mind passing the link here just for convenience for folks, and we can put it in the notes? Because I read through that before, and I think it explains some of the rest of this.
Yep. So I just have to find it. 1 second.
Yeah, Hida, we'll end it. We'll end on time. Yeah. you won't miss out on the discussion or anything. We'll go ahead and end on time
Oh, yeah,
as well.
put it in the,
Thank you. Okay, so what are the next, because that was excellent. Is there any other areas of feedback you wanted to get that you could note so that we could follow up after the meeting? Or did that cover the main areas that you were looking for?
well, on my side, I think it's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it pretty much covered everything I was longing for. Thanks.
That was so excellent. I'm really impressed, by the way. I'm very excited. Just also, like from both the Helm community as well. But I'm thinking also of tools like Customize too, and I'm pretty excited about this. Okay, are there any other action items that we need to take or like note in the notes for next steps, or are we kind of like happy there and we've got our trajectory already? I'm thinking happy. It sounds like yes, everything is good. Okay. All right. Well then, thanks a bunch. And if we miss some of the links and someone wants to paste them into the docs afterwards, that's awesome. But I think we got most of it. So we'll see you next time.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.